Hello and welcome all my people pleasers. If you're here watching this video, it's because you signed up for Boundaries Basic Training. I have a 2-day training coming to you all about learning how to set boundaries, enforce them, and to stop feeling guilty for saying no. So if you are here live with me, I invite you to play along in the comments. That means type in whatever's coming up for you. If I ask a question, type it in the comments. And if you're watching the replay or you're watching this at a later date, make sure you also drop into the comments here. Since we are on YouTube, please give me a follow, a subscribe, click that button and the bell notification so you know when I upload new videos. My name is Cami and I'm an intuitive life coach for people pleasers and perfectionists. And I have a course called Anxiety Detox specifically for people pleasers to release anxiety and stop worrying what other people think of you. So if that is you, you're going to want to stay tuned. We will be here for about 45 minutes today because I'm going to do teaching, training, and a practical exercise so that you can start going out into the world and setting boundaries with this information. So first, we want to talk about a couple of points here. What is a boundary? And as you are coming into the room or you're watching this video, type into the comments, what do you think a boundary is? When's the first time you learned about a boundary? Let's start there. A little bit of my story. I was actually with someone for 9 years, and I was what's called a codependent, which means I was always worried about his happiness. I was always worried about making sure he was good and he approved of me. And the entire time during that relationship, I built up resentment. I had challenges with self-love and self-worth because I didn't think that my needs were equivalent to his needs. And I kept overgiving and trying to people please and to make sure that he was okay. So when I first learned about boundaries, it was when the resentment and the unhappiness had built up so much that I decided to hire a relationship coach. And for me, that transformed my life because it gave me awareness of what my own boundaries are. And I like to think of boundaries as a protection, right? So I have 2 dogs. One of my dogs is very hyper. He wants to jump on people. The other dog doesn't really like other dogs. So I like to think of putting up a fence as a boundary to protect my family unit and to protect others, right? To protect my dogs and to protect other dogs and people. So what this looks like in practical sense is, let's say I'm out in the world walking my dog on a leash, the one who's not really happy about other dogs. I need to set a boundary with other people in the neighborhood or in the proximity and let them know, make sure your dog's on a leash. Please keep your distance, right? And I'm doing that from my intention and my value system of making sure that my dogs are safe. I love animals, making sure other dogs are safe and making sure that there's nothing that's going to happen in between the two. So I like to think of that in a way of setting up an energetic boundary, a physical boundary, a boundary that is going to keep the values aligned and to keep the safety, right? And to maybe even keep the relationship. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through that today and how that may come up for you. So, what is a boundary? Something you may have never considered until somebody crossed your boundary, right? And I want you to think about, I have a story of one of my clients. Her name is Jan. She's given me permission to share her story, but I've changed the name just to protect her identity. But her name is Jan. Let's call her Jan. And what was happening with her is she was in this relationship dynamic where she was working for this person and this person was very reactive, right? This was her boss. This person was very reactive and she would try every single day to do everything right, to preempt all of his needs, to make sure he was okay. And at the end of the day, what would happen is he would yell at her. He would scream at her. He would flip out. And she realized, this is not good for me. I cannot continue this relationship. So, long story short, we worked together for a few months and she was able to get to the point of feeling confident about setting boundaries, about having conversations with this person, and then eventually on leaving that job. So, I want to give you this story to help you to realize that no matter where you are with boundaries right now, no matter how hard it feels, this sweet, sweet, beautiful person named Jan, she is amazing. She has the most beautiful energy. She is a kind person. And when she really embodied her values and when she learned how to protect her energy and she learned how to celebrate herself, validate herself, she learned how to have these conversations and be okay with it. And the result was she actually quit that job, but she was able to still be friends with her former boss, just in a different capacity, right? Spending less time together and seeing each other in certain situations. So I also want you to realize the worst case scenario may not be what you think it is. You may not have to completely abandon the relationship, although sometimes you may, but you will notice new relationships will come in because of you valuing your values and your self-worth. Okay. So now we've covered what are our boundaries? How do we know what our boundaries are? And let's get into some of the practicalities of mistakes you may have made. This is really, really common about the mistakes. And before I go into it, I do want to let you know I have another training specifically on the mistakes. If you would like to access that, I'll put that in the link below. And if you are interested in finding out more about Anxiety Detox, which is my course specifically for people pleasers, I've put the link right up here, right up here. There we go. Right up here. If you go to www.anxiety-detox.com, you can find out how to sign up. You can sign up at any time. We do monthly coaching calls. And in the month of August, which is happening right now in 2022, I am taking Boundaries Basic Training and turning it into Boundaries Bootcamp, which we are doing for 3 weeks inside of the course. So this is your teaser. And you're going to get great value with this, but I just want to let you know to apply these things and to continue to get coaching is going to be highly beneficial for you. Not only that, you being able to realize that other people are having the same challenges and struggles with people pleasing and anxiety, you are going to realize that you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. And you're going to start to see examples of other people setting those boundaries, and it's going to help you build up your confidence and trust in yourself. Okay. But here's the 3 mistakes. The 3 mistakes that I see are just like my former client who is a student of this work. She was always trying to make other people happy in order to make herself happy. And this doesn't work. We've seen it time and time again. What happens is you build up anxiety in your body, which might feel like a tightness in your chest. It might actually show up as panic attacks, shortness of breath, not being able to breathe, having a jittery feeling, thinking, what are they going to think of me, right? All of this is a side effect of the thought process of I need to make this other person happy. Whenever in reality, what's happening is you're building up anxiety and resentment because you're overgiving and you don't have the ability to say no. So that builds up resentment. So it's actually damaging the relationship when you put somebody else's happiness above your own, because their happiness is their responsibility. Even if you did everything 100% of the time to ensure their happiness, guess what? People will still not be happy because it has nothing to do with you. You are 100% responsible for your happiness. They are 100% responsible from their happiness. And it comes from our predominant thoughts, which lead to our feelings. And from there is where we take our actions. Okay, so that's the first mistake, is thinking that other people's happiness will make you happy. That's not true. What makes you happy is aligning with your own values for your own self and celebrating and validating yourself so that you know you are doing well, you are in alignment, you are good enough, and you are giving enough, not only to others, but to yourself as well. The second mistake is thinking and asking the wrong questions. Okay. So what happens is when you're stuck in anxiety and you're thinking about what are they going to think about me? I don't know what to say. What's their reaction going to be? And you're stuck in this thought process of asking questions that are not going to get you any answers that are going to be helpful for you. So the solution to this is to focus on what it is that you want. right? There's a reason you want to set a boundary, right? There's a reason why you're saying, oh, I don't want somebody to call me late at night because it keeps me up late. Or I don't want my mother-in-law to say this thing to me because it's inappropriate. I don't want so-and-so to ask me this question at the dinner table. I don't want to talk about my business or money or finances in this context. So there's a reason why you want to set the boundary in the first place. So we want to attach to that instead of attaching to the thoughts that are not serving you. Those thoughts could be, what are they going to think of me? It's so hard to set boundaries. They don't respect my boundaries. What are they going to do? What if they overstep my boundaries? And then what happens? Right? So we want to break this pattern of thought process. And the way we do this is through energetically shifting, which I'm going to show you on this session today. And then the third mistake is actually thinking that because you have anxiety around people pleasing, because you just identify as a people pleaser, you believe that to be true and you take that as your identity and you think there's something wrong with you. You can't be fixed. There's nothing that's going to happen here. People are going to continue to walk all over you. And you have this thought that it's not hard for other people. Okay. And I want to remind you, I was in a relationship for 9 years. It took me 9 years to figure this out. And I have developed this course, Anxiety Detox, to help you figure it out quicker and with more support and to start moving in the direction of setting those boundaries so that it doesn't take you as long as it did for me, right? And boundaries will happen with family, with coworkers, and with the general public, right? People on social media, that kind of thing, strangers. So what I want you to realize is there's a 50-50 situation going on in your brain. You may have a tendency to feel anxious. You may have a tendency to people please, but that's only 50% of your equation, right? Your personality or your tendencies or the chemicals in your brain is 50%. What I help you with is the other 50%, which is the way you choose to think. The way you choose to think about your brain and the thoughts your brain offers. Here's what I want to remind you. Every human brain is designed to offer 90% negative thoughts. Every human brain has about 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and about 80 to 90% of those thoughts are recurring and they're negative. So I want you to remember this is a normal human experience of having an abundance of negative thoughts that lead to feelings of anxiety, feelings of insecurity, feelings of self-doubt. But what I'm going to do throughout today's training and for the next 3 weeks inside of Anxiety Detox is teach you how to unwind your brain and to get into a place of certainty and confidence to communicate boundaries. Okay? All right. So let's dive into the process that I use to teach boundaries. And this is what's inside of my course, Anxiety Detox. It's called the Inner Peace Pathway. It's super simple. It's 4 steps. And these 4 steps have been developed by me for over the past 10 years. I was in that relationship. I learned I had to hire a coach. I went to Bali, Indonesia for a retreat. I learned my values, my relationships. I learned how to communicate. And one thing I learned that was so important from one of my coaches is your values and needs are important. And my values and needs are important, but yours are not more important than mine. And if you take nothing away from this training today, I want you to hear that, feel that, even if it doesn't feel true right now. Nobody else's values and needs are more important than your own, including your family and including your children, right? Because we oftentimes want to people please those in direct proximity to us because we think when they're happy, it means something about us. Like we're a good mom or we're a good child or we're a good daughter, uncle, husband, whatever it is. But what I'm going to teach you throughout this process is the people pleasing comes from a deeper level, right? And even though it comes from a deeper level, it's actually really simple to shift it. Okay, so the Inner Peace Pathway, 4 steps. Step number 1, energetically shift. Why does this work? This works because what happens is in the beginning, you're anxious. You feel it in your body. You're all over the place. You're worried about what they're thinking about you. So even just the simple act of breathing, getting conscious awareness. I teach 3 things inside the course, which is using your body, using your mind, and using energetic actual tools to shift your energy gets you into your body, gets you into a state of safety and security because we create our own safety. And then by the end of that energetically shift, you feel clear. You don't have that anxiety welling up in your chest. You feel more open. You don't have the spinning thoughts. Then we're able to move on to step 2. Step 2 is take aligned action. This is where we set the actual boundary. So what is this based on? This is based on a few things. Number 1, your identity, who you're becoming. So if you're watching this right now, I invite you, instead of calling yourself a people pleaser, you are now a recovering people pleaser because you're learning the process to overcome and work through this. So we work through identity, we work through vision, we work through values, and then we work through practical things like communicating and taking care of your energy when you actually have to go out into the world and have these conversations, whether it's in person or it's over text or it's via email. I teach you how to confidently communicate and to take care of that part of you that feels vulnerable when you're in that communication process. Okay. So by the end of step 2, which is taking aligned action, you will have clarity on what your values are. You will know when to say no and what to say no to. And this is going to be different for everyone. And you will actually have a roadmap for what your boundaries are and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And then you will be able to take the actions and get rid of that feeling of guilt, right? Get rid of that feeling of guilt or that fear of disappointing people. So step 2 is powerful, and this is the majority of the work that we do inside the course. And this is where we really lean on one another inside the community to celebrate each step that you take to move forward. And then step 3, one of my favorite parts, favorite steps, best step, is celebrate and validate yourself, right? Why? Because what's happening with people pleasing is we want validation from others to tell us that we're good enough, to tell us that we're doing a good job. So to take that means we're giving our power away to other people and other relationships. And we're saying, I'm not worth anything unless you tell me I am. And the only way you can tell me I am is if I'm making you happy, right? So it's a constant hamster wheel every day of trying to seek external validation, being told that you're good enough. So what we do is we take that power back by celebrating and validating ourselves. We do it every time we set a boundary, have a courageous conversation. We do it every time we're in alignment with our values. We do it physically with the body. And this is proven based on neuroscience by Dr. BJ Fogg, that the celebration changes the physiology, which changes their neurochemistry and the neural pathways in the brain. So we physically celebrate with the body, with the energy. We also celebrate and validate within the community, within the course of sharing our wins with others. That's going to uplift the courageousness of the entire group and the community. And it's going to help you on your journey to that alignment, to bringing in this inner peace and these harmonious relationships. So those are the 3 steps. And then we've got a 4th step, but I want to just recap the 3 steps because this is the quick and dirty way to get into boundaries. Okay. Step 1, energetically shift. So we need to shift the energy using the mind, using the energetic body, which we can't really see, but we can feel, and then using the body. Step 2 is taking aligned action, knowing what your boundaries are, setting up your values, tapping into the identity of the person who's no longer a people pleaser, but is strong and confident. And then using clear lines of communication to communicate. This is what is good for me. This is what's no longer good for me. And here's a way that I can say it that is no longer seeking approval. And it's a way that I can say it that's no longer apologizing or saying sorry. We learn ways to say no in really powerful ways. And then step 3, which is celebrate and validate yourself. This enables you to continue to move forward as people test your boundaries, as people come around, right? A lot of people feel challenged around enforcing those boundaries. This is what allows you to continue to enforce the boundary again and again and again, over and over and over again with maybe the same person. And then step 4. Step 4 is called master your energy. And step 4, which is why this course is a lifetime access, is because you're going to continually be learning about the tendency of people pleasing. But in this last step, we go deeper into healing. We go deeper into training. We go deeper into personality traits. This step, master your energy, means by the time you've moved through this process, you will be able to deal with any relationship. You will be able to deal with any person. You will be able to deal with anything that comes up in your personal life, in your business life. Because at the end of the day, people they have their self-interest at heart. So what does that mean? People are going to ask for things. People are going to overstep your boundaries. It's going to continue to show up in the world. But in step 4, master your energy, you just deepen your sense of self. You deepen your values. You deepen your identity. And you go deeper into some energetic healing on some things that maybe came up in your childhood of forgiveness, of breaking those patterns. And so in step 4, which is continuous, right? It really is the rest of our life as we learn and grow. That's where we really learn to trust and to build that confidence and to let go of the anxiety when it comes up a lot quicker instead of holding on to it. So those are the 4 steps of the inner peace pathway. This is what is taught inside of the course Anxiety Detox. And I want to actually teach you a way to start tapping into the energetic shift process. I'm going to take a sip of water just to take care of my voice. I'm going to see if there's anything I haven't addressed here. Okay. We addressed what are the boundaries, why it feels so hard to set them, how to get over feeling guilty. Let me address these 2 right here before we go into the energy shift. It feels hard to set them because you're out of practice, right? And I used to be a dog trainer. I have this amazing, diverse experience, which makes me a really great life coach. But I really understand psychology and evolution. And I have a degree in molecular cell biology. I've studied evolutionary biology. And there's 2 things here that are happening, right? The first thing is it feels hard to set boundaries because, evolutionarily, right? Natural selection has selected us to be a high anxiety, fearful people who wants to get along with other people. Okay, why is that? The way that natural selection works is the things that our ancestors did, right? Let's remember we lived in tribal communities. We relied on each other for hunting, for gathering, for food, for community, for shelter, for warmth. It was very important for us to be accepted by the tribe or by the community, because if we were not accepted, right? If we just blurted off anything and said anything we wanted and we made the leaders in our communities angry, they would kick us outside the wall. We would be off on our own in the wilderness. And then what would happen? We would die and we would leave no offspring. So that's the way this works. The people who are really good at staying in community, pleasing one another, the people who are really good at staying away from fearful things, right? Lions, tigers, and bears. So that has cultivated us as a species to be very aware of things that are scary so that we don't die, and very aware of pleasing people so that we don't get kicked out of the community. So I want you to see how our brains have literally evolutionary developed to be very afraid and very concerned about what other people think. So I want you to start there by going, oh, again, I have a normal human brain that's very fearful and has anxiety, and I care a lot what people think. When we start from this, we can look at it objectively and go, okay, that's why it feels hard. Because my brain is literally telling me I'm going to die if I do this. Because that was true millions of years ago. But our brains evolve very slowly, right? And what's happened is we now have social media. We now have all these triggers. We now have an inundation of information and email to which we have to set boundaries on. We never had that before when we were out living off the land. So I want you to notice we have this archaic brain, and now we're trying to bring it into a modern society. And this society requires lots and lots of different boundaries, right? Before, we lived so far apart from people, they wouldn't just pop over to our house, right? At an inconvenient time. We wouldn't have to tell them no. They wouldn't slide into our DMs and send us text messages. So I want you to see that the level of opportunities for saying no has increased, like let's say 1,000-fold. But our anxious brain has stayed the same and is looking at each one of those like, oh, if I say no, I'm going to die. Oh, if I say no, I'm going to die. So let's just start with that objectively, right? That's the first reason why it feels hard. The second reason why it feels hard, and I relate this back to dog training, is I love dogs, right? And I have foster dogs and I have rescues, which means they're kind of all over the place. And I had this foster dog once that she was a stubborn breed and she wanted to be on the couch. She wanted to be on the couch. And I got her into my house, and the rule was we weren't allowed on the couch, but she was on the couch all the time. And I physically had to like pull her off the couch or push her off the couch or carry her off the couch. And she would just jump right back on there. She didn't care, right? So eventually what did I do? I was like, oh, well, I gave up and I just let her on the couch, right? That's what we do sometimes because it feels too hard to reinforce the boundary. But I want you to think about the people in your life that you've allowed on the couch. All of a sudden, it's been 25 years and you're going to start saying, actually, this behavior is inappropriate. And they're going to start saying, I don't care. You let me do it for 25 years. So I want you to realize that you initiating and setting the boundary doesn't mean that they're automatically going to respect it. Your job as the communicator, as the boundary setter, as the boundary enforcer is to continue to hold those boundaries firm and to continue to make changes. So for example, with this dog, I just gave up, right? But if I really wanted the dog off the couch, I would have probably crated the dog, put a gate up to not let the dog in the room with the couch, or I would have put something on the couch that would have disallowed the dog to get on the couch. So the question really becomes, how willing are you to stick to your values? Either way, you're going to be uncomfortable, okay? So if someone's overstepping your boundaries, you're going to be uncomfortable, feeling anxiety and resentment and unhappiness. Or you can move in the direction of your vision. You can move in the direction of inner peace on what it is that you want to create in relationships and inside yourself. And you can still be uncomfortable as you set the boundaries, but the difference is you've now stepped into willingness and courage. Willingness and courage are the transformational emotions that will absolutely change your life and your relationships. So I want you to just use that like, yep, boundaries are going to feel hard at first. It's my job to continue to enforce them. It's my job to continue to set time boundaries, energy boundaries, and physical boundaries until I'm in alignment with what's ideal for me and my relationships and my values. Okay? All right, let me just check a few other things. Okay, we talked about what boundaries are. We talked about how to enforce them. If you have any questions at this time, you can type those in at the comments below. I will be doing follow-ups. I will be checking back in on these comments tomorrow before I go live. So let me know what's coming up for you. What's the hardest thing for you in setting boundaries? And then what's going to shift for you after today's training? What is going to shift for you after today's training and moving forward? All right, let's go into the energy shift process. This is something that I teach in step 1 of my course, the Anxiety Detox course. It's energetically shifting. And this can happen as quickly as 90 seconds. Okay, so I want you to realize this doesn't take years of therapy. You don't need to journal every single day about it. Like you don't need to meditate for hours to release the anxiety. It's truly simple when you're coming from the intention of willingness. I'm willing to do something different so that I can get a different result. So what I'm going to show you today is an energy shifting technique called EFT, or you might have heard of it as tapping. It's known as emotional freedom technique. And it was developed by a psychologist. And it's actually been clinically shown, self-reported, to reduce stress and anxiety in the body. And essentially what it is giving yourself your own acupuncture, right? So you're tapping on the energy points. It allows the emotions to flow through. It allows the energy to flow through. And typically what it does is it reduces the level of anxiety, which drops you into more of a clean and clear energy, which allows you to take the steps to move forward into setting those boundaries. So let's just get started, okay? This is something that feels weird the first time you do it, 1,000%. If you have any perfectionistic tendencies, you may feel like you're doing it wrong, but there's no wrong way to do this, right? The purpose of this is to bring mindfulness in, and the purpose of this is to bring some awareness and then to shift some of those feelings and thoughts so that you can move on to step 2 and start taking the aligned actions to set those boundaries. So here's how it works. What we want to do is honor the thoughts and the feelings that you're having around setting boundaries. And I've been teaching on this for so long, so I have some common thoughts that people have. But if you have a common thought that you want to drop in the comments, feel free to put it in there as well, because it's really helpful when you actually know what it is that you're thinking. What's interesting about this is sometimes we try to avoid what we're thinking and feeling, and we try to just act confident. And we're not able to do it because we're overriding the fight or flight response that's going on in the body. So here's what clients are usually thinking. I'm afraid of disappointing them. I don't know what they're going to think of me. Oh, it's so hard to set boundaries. I feel guilty. I feel this tightness in my chest. I feel sick to my stomach. Oh my gosh, they never respect my boundaries. Right? I don't know how to do it. So I'm going to use some of these thoughts and feelings to help move you through this tapping process. So here's how it goes. If you're in a space and you're watching this live and you're able to do this out loud with me, I highly recommend. If you're watching the replay, get to a space where you can do this privately, right? Great news is you can really do it anywhere in the bathroom. You can do it while you're in your car. You can do it when you're in the office. You can just play along with it in your head if you aren't able to say it out loud. But there is something that happens when we use our voice and we're honest with ourselves and we feel the emotion, because the reason we're not setting boundaries is because we're afraid of our feelings. So let's prove to ourselves that it's okay. We can feel our feelings and we aren't going to die, because that's what our brain is telling us. Okay. So we're going to start by just taking a couple of fingers and tapping on the meaty part of the hand. And you can use either hand. It doesn't matter, whatever feels best for you. Let's just take a couple deep breaths. Okay, and I see a comment coming in saying setting boundaries for all of our products. That's a good one. And I'll add this in. So let's take a couple deep breaths here. Sit up straight and tall and just tap on that meaty part of the hand. And then you're going to repeat after me. Even though I'm feeling anxious about setting boundaries, I truly and deeply love and accept myself. Even though boundaries feel really hard to set, I truly and deeply love and accept myself. Okay. Even though I don't know how to set boundaries, I truly and deeply love and accept myself. Okay, and you're just going to follow along with me. We're going to go to the crown of the head, just tapping with 2 to 3 fingers on the crown. And I want you to just feel the feelings that come up when you feel anxious or overwhelmed. Or if you're thinking of a specific conversation, just let the feeling come up in the body. If you need to close your eyes, you can, but I'm going to guide you through this tapping process because we're now going to take the fingers in between the eyebrows. Tapping in between the eyebrows, feeling the feeling of what it feels like to disappoint someone, of having maybe set something in a schedule and now you have to change it. How does that feel in the body? Good. We're going to go side of eye now, the temple, tapping on the temple. Feeling what it feels like to think if your family's disappointed in you. Under eye, feeling what it feels like if you have to go back on your word, something you said you were going to do, now you're not able to do it. Under nose, feeling the feelings. If somebody doesn't approve of you, they don't think you're doing the right thing. You're in a disagreement with values. Let that feeling come up in the body. We took our tapping underneath the nose. Now we're going to take the tapping underneath the chin, or right on the chin. Okay. Let those feelings come up now, and I want you to give them on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being extreme anxiety, extreme fear, okay? And a 1 being peace, calm. Just rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 in your head. Okay, taking those fingers, tapping at the collarbone. All right, now we're going to start to just speak out loud. Even though I feel all of these feelings, even though I feel sick to my stomach, and we're going to tap under the arm, kind of in the armpit, the bra line area, rib cage. Even though it feels really, really hard to set boundaries. Top of head. Even though it feels like I have too many things to do, too many people to please. In between eyes. Even though it feels like I have to keep everyone happy all the time. Even though I just cannot stand to disappoint someone. Under eye. Even though it feels so bad in my body to let someone down. Under nose. Even though there's too much on my calendar and on my schedule. Chin. Even though I just keep saying yes to everything. Collarbone. I'm choosing to love myself in this moment. Rib cage. Even though I don't feel good enough. Top of head. Even though I know I can't make everyone happy. In between eyes. Even though I feel guilty for pretty much everything I do. Side of eye. Even though my family will be disappointed in me. Under eye. Even though people will make comments on social media about me and my life choices. Under nose. Even though there's people that disagree with me and my values. Chin. Even though I never ever feel good enough. Collarbone. I choose to be open to loving myself more. Underarm. Even though it does not feel good right now, I choose to be open to loving myself more. Top of head. Even though it does not feel good to set boundaries, I'm choosing to be open to learn. In between eyes. Even though it feels really uncomfortable. Side of eye. I'd prefer to feel uncomfortable courage. Under eye. Instead of feeling uncomfortable anxiety. Under nose. I'm willing to feel uncomfortable. Under chin. Or on the chin. I'm willing to feel anxiety. Collarbone. I'm willing to feel anxiety in order to release it. Underarm. It takes courage to feel my emotions. Top of head. I'm willing to feel afraid and courageous. In between eye. I'm willing to feel courageous as I set boundaries. Side of eye. I'm willing to feel afraid and courageous. Afraid and courageous. Under eye. Because courage requires fear. Under nose. Courage is moving forward despite the fear. Chin. I'm willing to love myself as I'm courageous. Collarbone. I'm willing to celebrate and validate myself. Under armpit. I'm willing to learn as I go. Okay, shake it out. If you have a sip of water, if you have water, take it here. Just notice how the body feels. Okay. A lot of times you might feel lightheaded. Some people will say they kind of get a headache from feeling this way. They might feel just kind of like a little floaty. Maybe you have a sensation in the body. But now that we've done one round of tapping, I want you to check in with yourself and see what the level of emotion is. So in the beginning, we rated the level of emotion from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being intense anxiety or intense stress or overwhelm. Now I want you to see if that number has lessened, right? Level 1 would be inner peace. Let's see where you are now. Just notice if anything has shifted, even if it's shifted only 1, right? Maybe you were a level 10, now you're a level 9. I want you to notice that you have the ability to shift the energy to allow the emotion to come through and to reach a sense of more presence. And let's say you weren't able to shift by a lot, you can do another round of tapping. And in the second round, you can start to affirm, I am good enough. I am important. It's important for me to set boundaries. I'm open to learning this, right? You can do another round of the affirmative, but the first step is to feel the negative, right? We don't want to avoid it and ignore it. We want to allow it to pass through. Then we want to affirm as we want to move forward, okay? So that experience right here is what we do inside of the Inner Peace Pathway. Step 1, this shifts the energy. That allows us to move on to step 2. And we're going to go into step 2 a lot tomorrow, which is taking aligned action, which is actually setting the boundary. Okay. But I want you to understand this is different for everyone. This process took me 9 years, right? Now I started working with a coach. Once I started working with a coach, it took me 4 years to break up with this person. But I want you to notice compounding interest, right? It took me 4 years to figure out what I wanted, and finally break up with this person. But then everything happened quickly after that. Once I knew my values, once I became confident in who I was able to align myself with my business, with my personal life. Then I met the next person. I was able to get married in 2 years, right? We met each other. I set my intention. I met him within a few months. We started dating. We knew we were going to get married. We moved in together. It happened really quickly. So I want you to realize this process is different for everyone. And there is an acclimatization period, which is why in Anxiety Detox, I like you to think about the process as a 6-month process. And then you acclimatize and turn into the person who sets firm boundaries, who releases guilt quickly, who moves through the anxiety and releases it quickly, right? We shorten your breakdown period. So I want you to give yourself grace through this process. And after today's training, this is your call to action, okay? I don't necessarily expect you to go out and start firmly setting those boundaries. I'm going to teach you how to do that in tomorrow's session. Today is about the energy shift and the awareness. So the energy shift is what we just did. Now we are in this place of more groundedness, of more clarity. So I invite you either right now, as soon as we wrap up this session within the next 5 minutes, or schedule this in later in your today before we go into tomorrow's training. I want you to sit down and do a journaling session. Okay, so you just grab an empty notebook and I want you to write down your experience of the EFT tapping. What were the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that came up for you in the beginning? What was anything that really hit hard in there, right? Like what was anything that really felt sticky? So a lot of people, maybe when you feel about self-worth and you feel you're not good enough, that really feels sticky in the body. The reason why we want to have awareness of this is because that's what we need to work on, right? We need to work on that when we're taking aligned action. So not only are we setting those boundaries, we are working on deepening self-love and self-confidence, because that is where this alignment comes from. So if something felt sticky, get honest with yourself about that. Yeah, when I said I'm really worried about people being disappointed, write that down. Let's realize that's a sticking energy. That just means that you've been thinking that thought for a long time. And there's an origin story there. Something came up from your childhood or something came up from maybe a past job, right? And this is how we can continue to shift energy. We identify where it came from. We identify the story, right? I learned that when I was a kid, if I didn't clean my bedroom the right way, then I was disappointing my mom or dad, or my grandma, or whoever raised me, right? I was disappointing them. And then I learned the only way to get love was to please them. And then I learned the only way to receive that love was to have a perfectly clean home. And then we notice how that creates anxiety and how this is shifted with us into our adult life. So I want you to get awareness after today's session. So step 1 is awareness of the sticky stuff. And then step 2 is, what is it that you want? if you could set boundaries anywhere, where is it that you know you need to set some boundaries? So Elevate Array Publishing and Marketing said setting boundaries for all of our projects, right? There's an energetic boundary and there's a time boundary on how many projects we're taking on how many clients we're taking on. Because sometimes we want to put our clients above ourselves and we don't give ourselves time for self-care, which actually hurts our clients in the long run because then we burn out and we can't serve from a place of burnout, right? So maybe it's setting boundaries with projects, with clients, with family, with your own morning and evening routine, with your own self. And then seek to find the feeling that you're wanting to create. So right now we have anxiety, we have overwhelm, we have burnout, resentment. That's where we're coming from. And I want you to identify the feeling that we want in relationship or in our work-life balance. Do we want to have harmony, work-life harmony? Do we want to have a sense of complete relax and detachment from our work life? Do we want to have a sense of strong, confident self with our family? Right? Sometimes family is the hardest. And then what thoughts are coming up around that, right? On why we think it's not possible to do that. And then tomorrow, I'm going to teach you the 3 types of boundaries and the 4 types of people. This is going to give you a bigger perspective when you go out to take aligned action on how do I actually set the boundaries? Because there's 3 types. And then what are the 4 types of people? How am I fitting into this dynamic? Once we have awareness of this becomes really helpful because now we have a higher level view of what's going on and it doesn't feel so personal. So that is your homework for today. We will be here live tomorrow, same place, same time here on YouTube. If you have not yet liked my channel and subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If you're ready to dive into Anxiety Detox with us, where we go into the inner peace pathway really deeply, where we're going to be going into the boundaries bootcamp, which is more intensive. This is where you're going to get that specific coaching on your specific boundary, on your business, on your interpersonal relationships, on your family dynamics. We are going to be going deep inside of the program for the next 3 weeks, coaching specifically on boundaries. This is where you get to take the action. This is where you get to get the coaching with me on screen and in the community so that we can actually figure out what energy you need to be in when you're setting the boundary, what your values are so that you feel very aligned with the boundary you're setting, and then the practical verbal. What am I going to say? How am I going to email this? How am I going to text this? Do I need to create a new policy in my business? Do I need to create a new policy with my family? Right? So we start to create these structures so you always have them to refer back to for yourself. And then you have the exact things to say because you've done it before and you're practicing it and we're celebrating it again and again. So again, if you're ready to jump into the course, head on over to anxietydetox.com. That's anxiety-detox.com. You can sign up, come on inside the course. You're going to get immediate access to all of the energetic shifts, even more than what we've done today. And then you can jump right on into creating your vision, your values, your identity. And we're going to be coaching live for the next 3 weeks so that you can get your coaching on your boundary setting. I will see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you everyone who's watched the replay and tuned in live and left comments below. I know that this is going to transform your life. I will see you tomorrow.